Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole. We are so happy always to be together, to come together in this way to inspire each other to leap into our dreams. That's what Dreamleapers is all about. And normally, I'm bringing guests on who are telling a story of how they leapt into their dreams. Today, we're having a little bit of a different show, primarily because of what's been happening in our world. Yes, we're going to talk about dreams and about kind of dreams that got knocked down a little bit, meaning what happened at the Academy Awards, but then also look at how we can deal with challenge and stress and our buttons being pushed so that we don't allow whatever's happening externally or even internally, whatever's getting stirred up, to mean that we may lose sight of those big dreams and opportunities in our lives. And so I have invited an expert to help us navigate this. She is Dr. Kiba Rogers. Let me tell you a bit about her. She's been an enthusiastic mental health professional for nearly 20 years. She has assisted children, adolescents, adults, and families in working together effectively in promotion of their mental, emotional, and social health and well-being. She is she has a PhD in counseling psychology and school psychology from the University of Buffalo. She's been working, like I said, for more than 20 years in the field of psychology, helping people to kind of navigate and understand, how to move forward effectively. I met her through the Kahila platform, which is a platform for professional women that really helps to inspire them to reach their dreams in their careers. And so I thought it was wonderful today to invite Dr. Kiba Rogers to be my guest. Welcome, Dr. Kiba.
Thank you, Harriet. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. And, look, every day, ever since the Academy Awards, which was a few days ago, the topic of conversation, sadly, is what happened between Will Smith and Chris Rock.
Yeah.
The slap. There's so many thoughts about this,
hmm
and just in the space of dreams, I want to set this a little bit because there may be some people who don't even know. The Academy Awards was produced and directed by an African American man, Will Packer. There were more African American people who were part of the production in one way or another than I perhaps ever, but certainly in many years.
hmm
Uh, Will Smith, this was a dream moment for him, playing Mr. Williams, King Richard, Venus and Serena's dad, in a movie that shows how challenging it was. And Will did such a good job.
hmm
Chris Rock, comedian, who he jumps in people's faces, and he was coming out to give the award to Questlove for Summer of Soul, which is this incredible documentary.
hmm
And Chris made a documentary about hair, black hair. And one aspect of that, Sheila Bridges, the interior designer, talked to him about alopecia and the devastating impact of alopecia hair loss, particularly for black women. And Jada Pinkett Smith has alopecia, which is why she's bald. All right. So I'm just saying this recap for anybody who doesn't know.
hmm
Chris Rock made it wasn't the worst joke in the world, but it got under their skin about calling Jada G.I. Jane, which, by the way, was a kick butt woman who had shaved her head in that movie. Demi Moore playing that, and Will Smith lost it. Came up on stage and slapped Chris in the face, and then went and sat down and started cursing his butt off. And the
Yeah.
whole world has fallen apart over it. What was your initial reaction from the perspective of a professional psychologist?
So, oh my goodness. Thank you for that recap. So interestingly, I was not watching the Oscars. So a friend of mine called and said, "Did you hear?"
Hmm.
And I immediately said, "That has to be a bit. These are both two comedians. It has to be a bit." And I then Googled it to see like what it looked like. And I can tell immediately from the body language, this was not a joke. So I didn't
Right.
need someone to tell me that it wasn't a joke. And
Sure.
I said, oh my goodness, this is not a joke. And immediately I said, what is happening with Will Smith? He needs help. He is hurting because this is not appropriate behavior, but also the behavior is so out of proportion to the incident. So my initial response was something's happening for him and he needs help.
And I think a lot of people had that thought in many different ways. Look, of all the Black actors, he is the one who has been welcomed by everyone, from when he was a rapper to Fresh Prince all the way up until this moment. I mean, he would be who people would say they were colorblind to, Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were saddened that he looked more like a thug than someone who they have loved so much. Also, a whole lot of people love Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And these are two sure crossover folks. And I say that because a whole lot of Black people are upset because they're like, oh, we have exposed our behind. At a time, why would we do that?
Yeah.
Now they can say all the things they thought about us are true, which unfortunately, when bad things happen, we fall into these stereotypical monolithic thoughts about what Black people are like. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I think that we don't even need something as major as what happened to happen for people, for them to say, oh, see, this is why the Oscars were so white. This is why we don't invite you to our party, and so I mean, I get it that there's some disappointment and frustration, especially as you noted, given that this was, produced by a Black person. Like this was the Oscars attempt to, I think, to make peace with what happened a few years ago, right? When all Blackness was snubbed from the Oscars, right? So it was their attempt to make peace. And I would say, I'm a person that is a big believer in extending grace to people, right? Just like I extended grace when the Oscars were so white, right? I was saying, hey, like somebody needs to like pull them aside. Like they need to be told what's wrong with this. The challenge is not everybody is extending grace, and all of a sudden it becomes the narrative on repeat that this is why we can't have Black people at the Oscars. This is why we don't do this thing now. A saving grace, in my opinion, is the fact that it was Will Smith and Chris Rock, two crossover artists. Everyone loves them. Everyone, us, them, all of us, and there is going to be, I believe, more grace extended because of who these two individuals are versus a rapper or someone who they believe is a thug anyway in real life. So I think there's some grace that will be eventually extended. I think that this has to play out a bit more where people feel satisfied with a level of retribution or response. But also huge here is the level of trauma. I am really concerned about Chris Rock, right? Chris Rock had that show, Everybody Hates Chris, and, kind of, and I know the show itself wasn't completely about his everyday life, but he has noted that he was not a popular kid. He was bullied when he was younger. Yeah. And then for this to be an experience where someone essentially bullied him as an adult in front of the world, what level of trauma is that now instilling and has undone all the years of therapy? I don't know if he has therapy, but like it has undone so much.
Interesting. And here's the thing, another part of this. Comedians do pick at people. That's their job. They, some of the best ones are picking hard at scabs. Some people are suggesting that Chris wouldn't have picked in that way if it were someone else. You know, one of our top uh, iconic blonde celebrity women per se. Who knows? But I want to share something with you because a lot of people, one good part of the conversation that has come up, because you know there's always some good you can find out of bad, is a discussion about alopecia. So
Yeah.
look, Jada looks exquisite. She's got her bald head. She looks amazing, but she has openly talked about hair loss
Yeah.
and what it means. And a friend of mine, Sheila Bridges, I mentioned before, Sheila has written about this, talked about it. Sheila had a TV show. She was doing incredibly well on TV, and her hair started falling out by the handful. She ended up losing her show.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, has, it's many years now, her career is amazing. Yet, this, you know, it was, do you have cancer? You know, all these questions.
Yeah.
Like, why is your head bald? So a friend of mine wrote to me, and I'm going to read to you what she said. And
Okay.
her situation is different. But here, just hear it. By the way, feeling confused this week and frustrated. Violence is wrong. We know that's true. But if I were at an office gig and somebody got on stage and made fun of her son's hair loss, she would lose her stuff. She's not justifying the slap. It could have gone a million other ways. He could have just said something and sat down. But the rage I would feel if my son, with a punchline of a joke, uh, about something he grieves and suffers daily, I wouldn't want to be held accountable for my reaction. Powerful, powerful. When, you know, so when people were joking about their open marriage, well, that's different. That's their choice. Two adults making a choice. We may or may not like it. We certainly can laugh about it if we want to. But joking about someone's disability, someone's
Right.
major health condition is different. And I wonder, do you think comedians should draw the line when it comes to what is okay to joke about?
So here's what's interesting. Yes and no. Um, yes, I think they should draw the line when it's personal, meaning in the way that it was on, at the Oscars. I think that there should be some sensitivity for people sitting in the audience. But if there was a general joke, sorry about that. That is my
It's okay.
um, if there is a general joke um, that is about the subject, I think that's okay. I just think that this was completely insensitive. It made
Yes,
me wonder, based on his response initially, does he know that Jada has alopecia? Because his response initially to Will was, man, it was just a G.I. Jane joke.
right.
Like he was confused about the level of pain that
Yeah,
was being presented. And so I'm still wondering, did he actually know about this? So there is we kind of make a lot of assumptions about what other people know, right? So for instance, I just found out about Jada's alopecia, I want to say maybe a month ago.
mm,
Um, I saw that I said, oh, she looks good. She cut her hair off again. I had no idea this was in relation to hair loss, right? And one of my friends goes, oh, she has alopecia. And I said, no, I didn't know that. So I think we make a lot of assumptions about what everyone knows because it's out in the world. And
right.
it's a possibility that he didn't know that about her and that he was just commenting on her new look, right? So that's one. Two, it's a possibility he did know, although I'm really skeptical of that given his response that this is just a G.I. Jane joke, right? Like this to him wasn't an alopecia joke. This was a G.I. Jane joke, right?
And I'm going to say I'm sure it wasn't an alopecia joke, not
Hmm.
consciously. I don't
Right.
believe that at all. I do. Look, it may even have been in the moment. He's a comedian. He may have just come on stage, saw her and was like, oh, you know, because again, that image from that film, anybody who goes back to look at it,
Yes.
it's about a powerful woman,
Powerful, yeah.
but woman. And because she was in the military, like all of the members of the military, had to get her head shaved. I think that's even the opening scene of
Yeah.
the film. Any way you slice it, it was incredibly unfortunate, and you know the repercussions are
Yeah.
continuing. Let me remind folks, you're listening to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. And today on Dreamleapers, right now, we're talking about some serious stuff. You know, how a dream can get derailed based on emotion. This is what we saw. We don't know yet what the fallout is going to ultimately be regarding Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. I think Dr. Kiba Rogers, who's my guest, made a really great point that because they are so beloved, because they are, you know, international iconic crossover artists, maybe they're going to get a different kind of pass than someone else might have gotten. You know, we'll see. There's a lot of pressure on the Academy to do more than the reprimand that they have already offered. So, you know, I think the pressure is everywhere. The shock is so great because there is the belief that people are going to play nice in the sandbox.
Yes.
You know, and that, like, for example, Dr. Kiba, in America, like, we don't have guards everywhere. Like, there was nobody to stop Will Smith from coming onto the stage. In the same way, when Kanye West came onto the stage at the Grammys, nobody's there to stop because there's no belief that someone is going to cross a line. And so there are all these invisible lines in our lives. And I want to pivot to regular people, to us in our lives. We all have had moments when we may have wanted to slap someone, curse someone out, turn on our heels and, you know, quit our job and walk out the room, quit our marriage, whatever, you know, whatever it might be, because the kettle exploded within.
Yeah.
And I want you, again, from your lens of being a psychologist, to help us understand when we get in situations like that, what we can do to not explode, and maybe even, you know, how not to get in the situation in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. So here is the challenge. We all think in some way, shape, or form that we should be allowed to do exactly what we want when we want to. And just because we're adults, that is not the case. We don't get to, I feel the pain of, a spouse being picked on in my presence. And I can definitely identify with the rage of like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening. I still do not have the right to touch another person's body. Ever. There is not one example ever when I'm going to say that it's okay for me to, without physical provocation, touch another human being and think that it's okay. So
wait, just stop for a second. That in and of itself is a very powerful statement. Because I mean, we can look at that in so many ways. It took me right to when I was pregnant and people that I don't know would come up and touch my belly. And I was like, excuse me? You know, when people even in COVID, when I've been on planes, like one person who was on the row with me touched my shoulder. Oh, what? I didn't give you. I don't even know you.
You're like, do we know each
other? So you are making a point. Forget hit, slap.
Yeah.
You're saying something that I think we believe but don't realize. Like, literally, no one has the authority to touch another human being without permission.
Permission. Yeah. My body belongs to me. Here's what's interesting. We teach the young ones. We do, sex ed class, my body belongs to me. No one has the right to touch my body without my permission. The people in my life who can touch my body are my parents and my doctor. And even then, I still have the right to say no, right? Now,
Powerful.
here's the challenge. And this is where we get into the trauma of it all, especially in the Black community. A lot of people in the Black community, especially those who are Black and grew up in America, have suffered at the hands of their parents.
Yes.
Their body has not belonged to them for most of their life
Mm.
because their parents did whatever they wanted to do as a consequence to whatever whatever their behavior was. This is why so many
I will
thousands
slap
of
the black
people,
off for you.
right? This is why so many thousands of people are like, of course, Chris Rock got what he deserved. Because this is the trauma that we have endured. You say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, you have a consequence. If that means you got smacked, that's what that means. You should have known better. Watch your mouth next time. Right? And
You
this
are
is all
preaching,
a
girl.
trauma response. But we don't know it because it's so normalized. This is just what it is in our communities. And so people, I mean, I had all the responses as a psychologist, as a Black person, as a woman. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I said, how is it that no one got up and escorted this man to the side? Now, I get that they couldn't stop it, right? But
Right.
after it was done, you then allowed him to keep talking from his seat. I'm sorry. I felt vulnerable and I had nothing to do with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So here's what we can do. I wanted to just, I'm going to answer your question, but I
That's okay.
wanted to
No, we're with you.
just say those things because
Sure.
sometimes we either don't know these things or we forget because of actually one of my clients said to me, well, did you see what happened? And I said, yep. And she goes, well, I agree that should have happened. He deserved to be smacked.
Ooh.
And I said, tell me more about the deserving part, right? And she goes, it's just like when your parents hit you for saying the wrong thing. You
Ooh.
should know better, right? This
Ooh.
is what a lot of people, and then we're trying to make this righteous, right? Because that's what we do. Because that helps with the cognitive dissonance of agreeing with something that we know is wrong,
Mm.
right? So we say, well, he was protecting his wife's honor. No, he was protecting his ego, pride, and image. That's what he was protecting. It wasn't about his wife's honor. His wife was clearly, visibly annoyed with the comment.
Yes.
Again, that does not give him the right to touch someone else's body, right?
That's powerful. And I appreciate you breaking it down in terms of the kinds of memories that we have,
Mm-hmm.
part of our legacy. And to be fair and to be inclusive, there are many white families
Yes.
who are beating up on their children. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I shouldn't even say it like that. Spanking their children. You're gonna
Yes.
get a good butt whipping, whatever people have called it over generations and generations. I think it is not exclusive to Black folks for sure. Nowhere were you saying that. But
Mm-hmm.
I you what you have just hit on something that's so deep because
Mm-hmm.
it is true. Most people of a certain age, anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
got spankings or whatever it was called, depending upon your household, your family, your community. Nowadays it's done less, or at least done less
Right.
publicly.
Right.
But I live in Harlem. I don't really ride the train that much, but when I used to ride the train a lot, I remember, and even just walking down the street, I have seen young parents slap their children upside the head, little children, people who are
Mm-hmm.
just walking
Yeah.
because they did something. How do they even know what to do? They're learning how to be
Yeah.
people. And the rage that's inside of the parent that probably isn't because of the child, but is
Absolutely.
because of all kinds of other stuff. And then, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And
so what do we do to not get to that breaking point.
Yeah.
The moment before Chris Rock gets slapped, the moment before a child is slapped or
Yeah.
spanked or, some other form of violence is performed on another that you love.
Yes. So I think the first thing we need to do is the thing that we don't want to do, which is pause and take a deep breath, right? Because what we forget, or perhaps some may not know, is that our brain, the part that does the thinking in the frontal lobe, is shut offline when emotions take over, because then we are functioning primarily from our amygdala, which says my emotions are all that matter,
Mm,
right? This is what matters, and I'm hot, you
yeah.
know? So when we pause and breathe, we allow ourselves the ability to regain rational thinking, right? So we're not just emotionally thinking, we are rationally thinking. Then after that, after we take a few breaths, we will like literally notice within our bodies, physiologically, our bodies will start to calm down when we take deep breaths. And then we can think about, what am I feeling here? What am I actually feeling? Because sometimes things happen and we immediately jump to anger. We blame a lot of things on anger, and some of those things have to do with anger, but some of them have to do with embarrassment. Some of them have to do with sadness. Some of them have to do with our own issues, right? With our ego, with our pride. So we have to kind of figure out what the feelings are that we're experiencing and identify those feelings. Name that, right? Name that feeling so that we can remove some of the power from that feeling,
Mm,
right? So we have to be able to say, you know what? Actually, I'm realizing it's frustration I'm feeling. I didn't want this to go this way.
yeah.
I wish this person would have not said this. And here's the reality. I forgot to say this in the beginning. Before we go through these steps, we have to actually just acknowledge what we cannot do. What we cannot do is control what other people do. And
That's true.
that's what we want to do. We want to control people. We want to be able to say, I want this to go this way. I want this person to talk to me in this way. I want them to do this way.
Right.
We can't do that. So we take a deep breath, we identify and name the feeling, and then we remove ourselves from the situation. If we are still feeling enraged or burning sensations in our chest, or our body is vibrating, we need some air. We need to remove ourselves from the situation. And we have to be able to say to people, when I say remove yourself from the situation, I am not talking about angrily stomping away
Mm,
in a huff, right? I'm saying the recognition of, like, wow, I am so, like, I'm having so many feelings about this. I am unable to continue in any kind of decent conversation about this. I need a moment.
And you know what, Dr. Kiba, when you say that, I'm hoping that people can think back on a situation when they were hot.
Hmm.
Something's going on. Usually, your belief is somebody else did something wrong, even if
Right.
you are part of what is wrong. And I'll say for myself, I remember being in an argument and knowing no good is going to come of this argument. We
Yep.
are yelling at each other. There is nothing good that is going to happen. And I will tell you, my ego did not allow me to stop.
Yeah. Hmm.
This is long ago, and I was trying to hold somebody accountable for bad behavior. And I was
Hmm.
in their face. And you
Hmm.
know what happened? I got hit.
Mm.
And long ago, the only time that I've had the experience of being in an abusive, physically abusive relationship, it happened
Mhm.
once. Thank goodness I was able to extricate myself, and I'm gonna say extricate my mind. And
Right,
they got your
right.
mind to go that far.
Mhm.
But what I recall, when I'm honest with myself, I knew it was time to shut up and walk out. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it. I kept going. And when you keep going, it's like igniting a flame, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's hard to step back, take a
It
breath,
is.
turn
It's
around
hard.
and
It.
leave.
You know what makes it so hard is that we think we're right all the time,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to just admit I'm not right here. And even if I am right, I see what's happening to the other person. The other person who, by the way, is someone I care about.
Whew. Okay, look, let me remind folks, we're going deep today. We are here to gather together. You are listening to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. Sometimes we just have to go straight to the heart. That is what we've been doing here with Dr. Kiba Rogers, dealing with the things that are the stumbling blocks before us that can derail a dream in a blink.
Mhm.
I just want to take a moment to talk to the WBAI family. I'm so grateful. This is my fourth year of having this show, to be in community with you, talking with you, bringing guests who can inspire us and lead us to the truth. Because when we do that, we can find the space to be free and pursue our dreams. And sometimes it's hard, like this conversation that we're having today, but gaining tools so that we can move through even the most difficult of situations. I want to remind you that it is Women's History Month. Is this the last day or tomorrow? No, actually,
Tomorrow's the last day.
yeah. So it is. I want to remind you that we want to honor each other by becoming family through our contributions, and that is to become a BAI buddy. This is a monthly. That's one way. A monthly contribution that you can make to WBAI. And when you do that, you make sure that we keep the lights on, that we keep the phones on, that we are able to be sustained. We are 62 years old. We survived COVID. And guess what? We'll continue to survive with your generous contributions. And so we invite you to make a contribution today. If you want to make a weekly donation, you will receive a gift if you make a donation in the amount of $15 a month or more. You can also make a one time donation to WBAI, whatever your heart tells you you want to offer to this community that we get to come together. We come together every Friday at 9 a.m. Many shows are here: music, talk, inspiration, 24/7, 7 days a week. So the way you can make a donation is to call us at 212-209-2950. I'll repeat it: 212-209-2950. And you can also go online at give2 WBAI.org. We need your contributions. We are listener sponsored radio 100%. And that means without you, we don't stay on the air. We're in New York City. Our tower is in Times Square. It costs a lot for us to stay connected. And you all know, when there's a signal that's weak, you're mad because you can't hold the signal. WBAI has a strong signal because of you. So call us 212-209-2950 or go to give2wbai.org and make a contribution, whatever your heart tells you to make. You can make it in honor of Dreamleapers or just in general for WBAI. And I thank you in advance for being generous. We are here talking to Dr. Kiba Rogers. What we're talking about now is really for us and the choices that we make. When we are incensed about something, how we can make choices that honor the moment, that protect ourselves and others. Usually, these moments happen between people who care about each other. And also, past the physical blow, because that's one thing. There are lots of other ways that we can have explosions that don't support us, Dr. Kiba. And I want to think about, in a work environment, and people are now, it's a hybrid work environment. People right now are going back into the workplace, and a lot of people are uncomfortable about this. We haven't seen each other except for head and shoulders for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Statistics say that a whole lot of people gain a whole lot of weight, from
Mm-hmm.
5 pounds to 35 pounds. In the Black community, it's in the 30s for many people.
Mm-hmm.
People feel uncomfortable. They feel nervous about exposing their physical self. They don't know if they're as good at their job as they were before. And any little thing can spark folks. You just mentioned breathing,
Mm-hmm.
which I am a big proponent of breathing, but thinking about people going back out in the world and into the workplace, what tools can you recommend for them to stay centered and grounded and confident in the
Yeah.
person that they are, whatever they look like today?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a deep one. I would say we have to start first with how we feel about ourselves. I think my personal and professional opinion is that, part of why I will never be without a job as a psychologist is we don't spend enough time thinking about ourselves, thinking about who we are, thinking about what we for real actually want, not what our parents told us, our spouse told us, our kids told us. You know, we don't spend enough time thinking about who we are, what we have to offer the world. What are things that we do really well? What are things that we need help with? How to get the help that we need? These are things that if we just started to have moments with ourselves and say, okay, so my office is now going back hybrid. I've got to be there X number of days a week. I'm I'm noticing I'm feeling upset or I'm feeling anxious or whatever I'm feeling about that. Why? Right? And answer that question for yourself. So, does it have to do with weight gain and you're wondering if people are going to, notice and have things to say to you? Does it have to do with the fact that you have a level of comfort that, you've experienced for the last couple of years being in your own quarters? Does it have to do with anxiety around the pandemic, right? People still have anxiety around sickness. And I think that we have forgotten that. Or is it just like, I'm realizing I don't like my office? In the beginning, I heard from a lot of people that they didn't realize how much stress their office produced for them. It wasn't the job. They kept saying the job. But then when COVID hit and they were able to do their job from home, they realized the stress was around all of the office politics, all of the, things that you kind of have to do or participate in that you really don't want to do, but everybody expects it, right? So, first things first, start talking to yourself. It's okay. Doesn't make you crazy. Talk to yourself and ask yourself, what is it that I'm actually feeling? And try to get to the bottom of that, right? Because once you figure out that, then you can actually say, okay, so it's because I'm nervous about this. Okay, what's the worst thing that can happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's likely to happen given that I know these people, right? And I think that sometimes we think of worst case scenario, right? So let's say, for those of us who have gained weight, let's say we go, oh, I'm going to go back to the office and everyone's going to be talking about my weight. Is that likely? Like, do people actually do that in your face? Like, like, do people just like ever say, like, just want to note, yeah, see you gained weight? Like, like, no one does that,
Mm.
But these are the things that we think of in our minds, because we think of worst case scenarios.
That's so interesting. When the lockdown first started, I was working with a company doing a lot of coaching work. And one of the people that I was helping was a young white male in his 20s. And I don't know whether it was his first job, but early job.
Hmm.
And he expressed such a sigh of relief that he was not at the office. And I
Hmm.
said, well, why? And he said he worked in an open format environment, so they're not even cubicles. Well, were glass,
Mm.
barriers between walls, whatever. And he said that he works in a community that's a bro culture.
Mm.
He's not part of the clique. And he felt like he was back in high school, not being part of the in crowd. And he would watch the cool guys gather, huddle over at somebody else's cubicle where he was by himself. They would brush past him and either ignore him or, bang into his chair or do little things that would unnerve him.
Mm,
And he was so upset, Dr. Kiba, because he said, look, I'm beginning my career. I didn't think I was going to be back in high school. This was interesting to me on so many levels.
mm-hmm.
One, this notion of bro culture is still real in many businesses.
Absolutely.
But two, white males right now, if we look at a stereotype, the stereotype says white men have it all.
Mm-hmm.
They have every opportunity first. They're the ones who get whatever there is to get. This is the stereotype. And guess what? White males make more money on the dollar than anybody else. The stats kind of do show that there are many advantages that white males get. But here is an individual white male
Mm-hmm.
who is suffering.
Yeah.
And I have not checked back with him since hybrid office hours have begun at most companies. But I can imagine his trepidation. Oh, I'm going back into bro culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it is equal opportunity distress for many
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are things that, it's interesting because as you talked about that young man, I thought about um, the Black woman who said, "I am thriving in this pandemic
Hmm,
because I don't have to go to the office,
hmm,
because of all the microaggressions that she dealt with on a daily basis." And she's like, "I just feel so free, to just get my job done." you know so really, there are things that happening in the culture of work that
yeah,
we haven't really spent too much time thinking about, and then the pandemic hit, and this is why we have what's being called the Great Resignation,
yes.
because people are starting to recognize, like, hey, I value myself, right, and this is not working out for me, and so this is what we're now doing. Other folks are trying to figure out, and this, I would encourage them to stop right now if this is you. They're trying to figure out how to be the person they were in March of 2020. Stop stressing yourself out. You're saying things to yourself like, oh, in March of 2020, I could have gotten, 18 things checked off my to-do list. And today I only got 10 things checked off. Be okay with that 10. Okay? Because you are not the same person that you were in March of 2020. Your office is not the same office, and your job is not the same job.
That is so interesting, Dr. Kiba, because we have this propensity to want to go back to what was familiar. When will we
Yes.
get back to normal? And yet we see historically that isn't possible. We when we're moving forward, there whatever is before us is what is real. Not we cannot turn back the hands of time and say, well, I want it to be just like that. Well, you can
Yep.
say it,
Mm-hmm.
but because circumstances are different, you can't get that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenging thing for people to accept. How Because people don't like change, even though change is
Yep.
the one thing that's constant, they don't like it. So what do you say to people to help them understand you need to have your eyes open to now and
Yes.
figure out what now means?
Yeah. So I honestly, like, literally start with, I know change is hard and you don't like change. And so let me remind you, you don't have to like something for it to be true, right? Change is happening. It's already happened, and it's happening continuously, right? And change is also happening within the person who doesn't want to change,
Mm,
right? So they're looking at it like, well, I want to do this thing this way, but they're not recognizing, but you have also changed,
mm.
because it is impossible to have gone through a 2-year pandemic and racial uprising and all the things and wars and all the things that we're going through and still be the same on the inside,
Right.
right? So we have all changed. And the reality is, you don't have to, there's no requirement that you must like this new way of being. You must like your new way at the office. You must like the new components of your, you don't have to like any of it. And you have to figure out, is this what you still want to do now that change has occurred? Is this the way you still want to be now that change has occurred? Is this
And
the
that's
life that you want
powerful.
to live now that change has occurred?
That's powerful, Dr. Kiba, because it if you ask those questions and you recognize you have power over your own self
Absolutely.
in this situation, it doesn't have to happen to you. You can take control of your relationship to it. Let me remind folks, you are listening to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole here on WBAI in New York City. It's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. We are so grateful to be together. I feel a covenant when we bring guests on who just touch our souls in the way that Dr. Kiba Rogers is doing to help us to, figure out how to navigate a really challenging time when people feel raw and uncomfortable and embarrassed, and all kinds of feelings have been stirred up by the behavior of Will Smith and Chris Rock. Neither is innocent in what occurred at the Oscars, but way beyond them, we've been spending our time talking about how do we control ourselves? How do we reconnect to our own power so that we don't feel that outside forces, circumstances, experiences have to control us? That's a really powerful thing to do. Everybody, I want to get back to Dr. Kiba, so I want to ask you right now, please make a contribution to keep us going. WBAI is your home, your family, our family. This is when we come together to fill our spirits, and that's what we're doing right now. Help us to continue, not just for this year, but for 62 more years. You can call us at 212 209 2950. Again, 212 209 2950. You can wait until this broadcast is off, but call right after. And you can go online at give2wbai.org. Please make a generous contribution. It can be a one time contribution, or you can make a you can be a BAI buddy giving a monthly contribution. And I know we were giving away these thumb drives with thousands of hours of stories and voices of dynamic women in history. I am sure that we still have some of those. As low as $15 a month, you can have one of those if you'd like. And also for a $100 contribution, you can still get one of those thumb drives with all these stories, which I think is so great for us to listen to, but also to share with our children so that they can learn about not just the one or two women that we always talk about in Women's History Month, but so many dynamic women who will inspire us and our families and our children. So please call us 212 209 2950 or go to give2wbai.org and make your contribution today. So Dr. Kiba, the time zips by. We don't have a lot of time left, but I want us to send folks off empowered. That you've told us to breathe, to really reconnect to our power and recognize, as we were just talking about, that we can claim the moment we're in and accept change, which is so easy to say and difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
When people are having a hard time, this is a moment where I want to talk about working with a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
because there is still a stigma attached
Mm-hmm.
to working with a therapist, even though there are so many therapists in the world to help us at whatever age and stage of life we're in. Can you tell us what you believe the benefits are for people to have that professional support?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that the major benefit is one, getting you to think about things in a different way, see them from a different perspective, right? So that's probably one of the first things that people notice when they connect with the therapist is the way that questions are asked, or things that are brought up, they are now considering them from a different viewpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
But two, some of the deeper things that we might right now, wherever you're sitting or standing or being, you might not realize the deep hurts that you have endured because you've stuffed them so far down. And work with a therapist will help to not only surface those and not just expose them so you can feel raw, but also help you deal with those. How do you overcome that hurt so that you don't have to be nervous that it will resurface again? Because when it resurfaces again, you will know how to deal with it.
Mm.
And then the last thing I would say is a therapist is great for really thinking about, am I ready for a healed life? Right?
Mm.
Do I really want to move towards healing, or do I want to stay stuck in whatever the behavior pattern is, or the mindset is, or the emotionality is? Right? So the therapist is great for like, look, this is who I'd want to be. I'm still working on it, but this is this is the person I want to be. Actually, one of the things that Will Smith said, both in his speech and in his apology, was, "I want to be a person that displays love," or something to that effect. Right? I want to be loving. I want to be kind, and clearly he has some work to do on that. But that's, the first kind of step is acknowledging, like, I do want this. I know that my behavior didn't show that in this moment, and perhaps
Mhm.
the things that I do on a daily basis seem in opposition to that, but I
Right.
need help for how to get to the person I really want to be. I personally, as a therapist, am really focused on helping to empower people to live their authentic lives. How do we show up in a way that feels good to us, right?
Mhm.
That is not about what everybody else thinks we should be doing and who we should be and how we should show up to the world, but really taking and owning our power and saying, I tell you who I am. You
Right.
don't get to tell me. I am the person forming the narrative of my life. And I am now telling you who I am.
I love that, and I love that question. Do I want to live a healed life?
Mhm.
That's a powerful question because we know we get tools. We learn things that we can do
Yep.
to be healthy, whatever part of our being needs to be healthy,
Right.
and then often make unhealthy choices.
Hmm.
One of the simplest things that people can relate to on that level is what we eat.
Yeah.
If you put something in your body that isn't good for you and then you get sick, you shouldn't be surprised,
Hmm.
right? if
Hmm.
you if you cultivate a relationship with someone that is abusive, you shouldn't be surprised when it is abusive,
Hmm.
right? If you're
Exactly.
working somewhere where you are unhappy every day, you shouldn't expect that you're going to be happy. And
Right.
it's kind of obvious in certain ways, Dr. Kiba, but obvious for someone on the outside looking in, not
Yeah.
so obvious when you're in the middle of it. So, I often say to people, it's the moment of awareness when you can
Yes.
make a choice. And isn't it true that a therapist can help you to get to that moment of awareness? Oh,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that absolutely will happen as a result of therapy is growing in your own self-awareness,
Mm.
right? Like even just the things that you say. Sometimes, it's funny because sometimes people say to me, and I'm going to be real about this, like as a Black person, a lot of Black people will say to me, like, "Oh, I have friends. I don't need to talk to a therapist. What can a therapist offer that my friends can't offer? I love talking to my friends." And even as a friend, right? It's interesting because there are times when I will say to my friends, I'm not your therapist, right? Like at
Right,
some points, I have to cut the conversation. You need to have that portion of a conversation with a therapist, and I
yeah,
am not her, right? So what happens though is that because we are trained to see patterns, we study human behavior, right? We study people, right?
yeah,
So we are trained to try to help you get to the bottom of whatever it is, right? And then be able to move forward. And so you are building your self awareness. You're also building your social awareness. You're actually kind of paying attention to the people around you, the things that have been said, the things that have happened, how they have then impacted you, right? And how you have been responding as a result of that, and not even recognizing that all of those things were connected, right?
Wow.
You say things like, I don't know why I do that. That's just what I do. There is literally no behavior. Let me just help you all, just for free. Let me just help you all. There is literally no behavior that is just out of nowhere. It doesn't occur. It is
There's always a
connected to
reason.
something else. Yes.
Wow. So, Dr. Kiba, our time has come to an end, but for those who may be interested in seeking therapy and possibly in talking to you, how can they reach you?
They can reach me on my website, www.drkeba, Doctor is spelled out DoctorKeba G3.com. And my practice is Grace, Growth, and Greatness Psychological Services, which is what the G3 is for. And they can find me there.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you for talking with us about something that everybody is talking about. And I wanted to bring it home, help unpack what happened, what it means on a deeper level, and also how each of us can have agency in our own lives to be in control of ourselves and find some freedom. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kiba Rogers.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, it has been wonderful to spend this hour talking with Dr. Kiba Rogers. I want to say to any of you, if you are feeling tender and vulnerable, get help. You can call 911 if you need it. If you feel that it's not that urgent, you can contact therapists, including Dr. Kiba Rogers, but get help if you need it so that we don't go to blows with ourselves, with our loved ones, with each other. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.